Give God praise for it. If you'll open your Bibles, book of Revelation. This will be the beginning of the end. Now there are several ways to approach this book. And myself personally, I'm a simple man and I have a very simple mind. We could take and start into this and just go as deep as you want to go, and I would get confused. You probably would. And so I prayed a lot about this for a good while because I knew we'd come to it. And I feel that God has given a direction that we're going to kindly outline this book. I had a great history teacher. She gave inspiration to me. She never knew it. And at the time, I didn't know it. But later on in life, she has inspired me to study. She inspired me to develop as trying to be a speaker and as trying to be a teacher. The greatest teacher I ever heard in my life was Miss Little Page. Greatest teacher I ever heard. We walked in the first day as a junior into American history, and she said, take your books when you leave, put them in the locker, and I don't want to see them the rest of the year. I said, yes, my kind of teacher. She said, go to the store and get you a little notebook like this, full of paper. And get you a pen. We are going to learn American history. She outlined on the board every day, and she taught every day. She acted out every character and every part within that teaching. Made straight A's. Wasn't because I was smart, but she had me locked. And what she said, it stayed in my mind. And she had two things that she always said, and you could hear her all the way down the hall. If you got it right, she'd holler, right! And if you got it wrong, she would say, wrong! And I'm not exaggerating. Now, you that are haters, we're not exaggerating. A great teacher. And so as God saved me, and as God called me to preach, and as God began to lead in life, it took a many years. But these things that she instilled in me began to come back to me. And the way that I preach and teach now is Miss Little Page. That's the character. And we never know who God's going to place in our lives to give us help. And these were many years ago, from a 16, 17-year-old kid up to a 71-year-old man. That's a long time. And she wasn't a pretty lady. Oh, Lord, she was hard to look at. But she had something about her that was alluring. Something about her, you was attracted to her. And it was the skills that she possessed. The skills. And so those things are precious. You never know who you're influencing in life. So be a good influence. You never know who's going to influence you. So be prepared. Now, we're going to skim Revelation. Some part of it we'll go by word, verse by verse, item by item. Some of it I'm going to put together. And I feel this is the way God is leading. But I'm going to give you an initial outline of Revelation tonight. And if you can grasp this book is not a book to blow your minds. It's not. Don't get caught up in the figurative things in the book. Don't try the symbols that in the book. Don't try to go and say, now this is what it is, this. Leave that part of it alone. You got to find out how it works before you can make it workable. Right. When you started driving a car, somebody showed you the gas pedal, the gear shift, and the steering wheel, and the brakes. Those were the main components in driving. So there are some main components in understanding this book. So if God willing, we want to go in that direction tonight. Now, I don't even know whether we'll even get to the first chapter or not. We're going to try, but there's some things I want you to understand. Now, the theme of Revelation is this. First of all, it is not revelations. It is not plural. It's a singular. It is one particular revelation. Now, the theme of the book of Revelation is simply this: Jesus Christ. That's the entire theme. You're going to find Him from start to finish, all the way through. Jesus is the theme of the book of Revelation. Now, there are a threefold way that Jesus is carried through this book. 3 ways. As to time, we're going to see that Jesus has a timeline. Now, we can know what time we're living in, but we don't know what time that our time is going to end as a church. We know that we're living in the day of grace. And we know that grace will go on until God said it's enough and Jesus comes and takes His people out. The grace will end. So the book of Revelation has a timeline of Jesus Christ. We can know the timeline after the rapture of the church, but we cannot know the timeline before the rapture of the church. So there's a timeline. The timeline is this: which is, which was, and which is to come. The past, the present, and the future. That's the way this book is written, in 3 parts about Jesus Christ and about the church. It's written in past tense, present tense, and future tense. Now, this book is written in relationship to Jesus Christ as far as the church, the tribulation period, and the tribulation period, the kingdom period, and the offices that Christ has. Now, you might have never been taught this before. You probably have. But He has offices. Can you name those offices that you will find in Revelation? The offices He has. The titles that He has over Him in these offices.
Are you speaking like Alpha and Omega? Are you speaking of
No. I know you know.
He's our bishop.
No. All right, here we go. High priest.
Okay.
He's high priest. That's an office. He's bridegroom.
Okay.
He is king. And he is, starts with the J, judge. These are the offices that he possesses. Now that's what you're looking at when you begin to unfold Revelation. It's written past, present, future tense. It's a book of revelation of Jesus Christ. The relationship of Jesus to the church, the tribulation and the kingdom, the offices that he possessed as high priest, bridegroom, king, judge. Now, we're on one mission when we leave the 4th chapter of Revelation and go to the 5th chapter, all the way through. On one mission, this book is written toward one direction, and that is bringing the kingdom to this earth. Now, you remember when Jesus came, all the disciples, the apostles, they began to ask Him and say to Him, "Are you going to restore the kingdom at this time?" They were looking for Jesus to go to Jerusalem, sit upon the throne in the temple, and become King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's what they were looking for. Jesus did not come to this earth the first time to be king. He came to be Savior. He did not come to rule and to reign, but he came to make himself a sacrifice for the sins of the world. So, from 5th chapter all the way to the end, it's looking for one thing, and we'll study toward that direction, and that is when he sets his kingdom up on this earth. Now that kingdom is going to be what you call a 1,000 years millennial reign. It will reign for 1,000 years. He will reign for 1,000 years. During that time, Satan is going to be chained and cast into the bottomless pit, and we are going to rule and reign with Christ during that 1,000 years. And he will divide this kingdom up. He will divide this earth up. And it's according to how we have served him and how responsible we have served him and where we're going to sit in that kingdom. He says that some he will make rulers over 10 cities. Some he will make rulers over 20 cities. So learn this. Be faithful in what God's given you, because you're standing, your positioning in the future kingdom will be determined by what you have done here according to your faithfulness. Now, you didn't know you was going to get to rule anything. I am. I've been ruled over all my life. My mother ruled me. My wife is ruling me. But one day, I'm going to get to rule because Jesus said I could. I may not have but one pear tree to rule over, but whatever it is, I'm going to do a good job at what he gives me. So we're pointing toward the kingdom. That's where he's leading us, the kingdom age. When he comes to rule and reign on this earth for 1,000 years, he's bringing the kingdom in. Now, I want to ask you to look at one verse, the 19th verse. This is the key. This is the key that unlocks this book. 19th verse of the 1st chapter of Revelation. This is what John was told. Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. Chapter 1 is the things that are past. John was on the Isle of Patmos. He is spiritually caught up into heaven, and he began to write. Those things are past. Chapter 1's past. Chapter 2 and chapter 3, they are present things. There are 7 churches. Those 7 churches were real churches in the day of Paul, the day of John. They were in Asia Minor. They were real churches. Now he told them to write to these churches. So that represents the present time. Now those 7 churches is relevant to us because those churches had certain characteristics. From the Ephesus church all the way down to the Laodicean church. The Ephesus church was would date back in our time to about 93 A.D. That's when John was still living, John was still writing, and this church had everything going for it, but they were starting to slip down because John said, you've left your first love. Go back and do your first works over again and get it right with God. It goes all the way to the Laodicean church, is the age we're living in, where you're not hot or cold, you're lukewarm, he'll spew you out of his mouth. That's where we're at now. We're in the coldest period of time in the history of the church. Everybody said?
Amen.
We're in a time where souls are not being saved. We're in a time that people are falling away. We're in a time that people have just thrown their hands up and quit. We're in a time that you can't get somebody to come to church with a log chain. We're there. But in the midst of that Laodicean church, there is a true church. Even though we've got a lot of people that aren't saved that are in churches, we still got a remnant, we still got a group within that bunch that's saved, that loves God, works for God, and does the will of God. But one day, the true born-again believers are going to be taken out, and this world's going to be in bad shape when they're taken out. Revelation 5 to the end is talking about future. Past, Isle of Patmos. Present, 2 and 3. 4th chapter, the first verse is where the rapture occurs. 5th chapter, all the way to the end, is talking about one particular thing, bringing in the kingdom, and all that's future. So when you read chapter 1, you say, well, John's on the Isle of Patmos. The Lord spoke to him and told him to write. That's past. Go to Revelation 2 and 3. That's present. That's where we're living. From there on is future. Now there are 7 sevens in Revelation. 7 sevens of sevens. But there are 54 sevens in Revelation. Now forget about 54, I just wanted you to know that. There are 7 sevens. Now what are there 7 sevens? What is 7? What does the number 7 mean?
Completion.
Perfection, completion. I mean, you can't add nothing to it. God created the world in 6 days, and therein He rested the Sabbath. That means it was finished throughout. Now these are 7 sevens that's in the Bible. There are 7 churches. That's where we're at. 7 churches. There are 7 seals. There are 7 trumpets. There are 7 personages. 7 vials. 7 dooms. And 7 new things. We'll get to all that one day when we get to teaching and preaching on that road. So this book is made up of 7s. And those 7s are important. Those 7s explain things. And then we can know what's going to happen out there in the future. There are times, let me give you for instance, I'm going to give you one thing. We'll get this next year. I'll be preaching this long. It says that there are 2 witnesses to come at the end of the tribulation period. My theology is about to change. My theology has always been that it was Elijah and Moses. And I always figured it was Elijah and Moses because Elijah and Moses appeared in the Transfiguration on the Mount of Olives with Jesus. So that cinched it for me. But there are 2 people in the Bible said they never tasted death, and that was Elijah and Enoch. So I was half right. Now, what made me draw this conclusion? Why do I think that those 2 witnesses will be Enoch and Elijah? Why do you think?
Because everybody's got to die at one time.
Ah, it's appointed unto man once to die, and after this, the judgment. 2 people have not died, Enoch and Elijah. So I now reverse my psychology and my theology. And it really doesn't make any difference who they are. Because I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be there. And I'm going to be looking down, and I'll guarantee you I'll know. So that's not important to me. Now, these 2 men, this is why I know we're living where we're living, because of the things that's going to happen during the tribulation period. It said that these 2 witnesses would be killed and they would lay in the street in Jerusalem. And the whole world would be able to see him. Now, when I got saved, I could not understand that. How can the whole world, and I thought, God, you made a mistake, because I'm here in the Ballard County, and I can't, my eyes are good, but I can't see all the way to Jerusalem. And how's the people in China going to see it? How's the people down under going to see it? How? Well, they came along with something that's called satellite. Now I've got the picture. How are we going to see these two witnesses that are killed in Jerusalem and laying in the streets for 3 days? How are we going to see them? Turn the tube on. Flip your phone open. Are you getting any better at wiping yours, Kenny? He showed me his phone the other day. He said, I want to show you something. I don't know whether you ever showed it to me or not. Boy, it was just, he was zipping through that, and he said, I don't know which way. Well, I was useless. I got a flip phone. I can call out, they call in, and I am sufficient. Good. So there's these two witnesses, when they're killed, we had to wait for satellite to be invented. You think all this time since Jesus, over 2,000 years, gone by, and now it's come to pass. But this is not supposed to happen until on out in the future after we're gone. So I could say, all right, now God, I see you got a plan. And I'm seeing your plan unfold. Now it says that he will seal in their foreheads 144,000 Jews that will be led by these two witnesses during the tribulation period that will preach. Man. Now these TV preachers, they're getting the scene set for what's going to happen during the tribulation period.
Yeah.
They don't know it, but they're working on it. So all these things that we're seeing now, God said was going to happen, and now we're watching them happen. But we're still here. So if we're still here and these things happen, how close are we to leaving? I don't know. But I quit looking and went to listening. Now, there's a tribulation. It's divided in half. There's 3.5 years of tribulation, and then there's 3.5 years of great tribulation at the end of it. He says that it was not from the beginning, or it will not ever be again, the kind of treachery and pressure and heartache and persecution on this earth and the people. It never will be like what it will be during the Great Tribulation period. Now, during the Great Tribulation period, in order to buy or sell, you have to receive the mark of the devil, 666, in your foreheads or in your hand. You can't buy or sell unless you do. Now, the devil is always, he has always duplicated everything that God has done. You remember the 144,000 witnesses? They bear the name. God seals them. You can't kill them. You can't hurt them. You can't do anything to them. They're God's preachers led by the two evangelists during that period of time. Now, when the Great Tribulation comes along, the devil steps out and he says, all right, I'm God. I'm going to put a seal in your forehead, 666. I'm going to put a seal in your hand, or you can't buy or sell. Now, you just think. Now, these things were impossible. This is Croology, what I think. I'm giving you a lot of stuff, but we'll put this all together through the weeks and months to come. I'm not a credit card debitor. Right, Miss Barbara? I'm not a check writer. I'm a cash deliverer. I like cash. I've always liked cash. And if I buy something, I like to have it in my pocket. And I like to take it out of my pocket and pay for it and leave saying paid in full. Barbara said, you need to use the debit card. I ain't using a debit card. But if the Lord tarries much longer, I may have to use a debit card. Because they don't want cash. Sam, when she came up here, she stopped outside of Nashville. She went in and she got her a Diet Mountain Dew and a couple of other items, $3 or $4. She walked up, she had a $100 bill, and she gave the clerk a $100 bill. She said, I can't cash it because all I've got is $3. In order for you to buy that, you've got to have the right amount of money on you. She said, we can take your debit card. What's wrong with green? They don't want it. So we're just gradually edging toward what is going to happen during the tribulation period, where that the government of the world becomes one, and the government of the world controls all the finances, and the government of the world will give people a number and said, you've got to do this or you can't do anything else. We're almost there. The world will be there. But now if we're seeing it now, how close are we to leaving? We're getting pretty close. But I'm an old fossil anyway. I'm outdated, doesn't outlive my time. So there are some things that from chapter 5 on, I'm going to name a few things. The tribulation period, 3.5 years long, a great tribulation. 144,000 of evangelists called out, led by 2 witnesses. The battle of Armageddon, the 1,000 years that Satan would be bound. He'll be loosed out of his prison. Got the resurrection of the righteous, resurrection of the unrighteous. Then where Satan is cast into outer darkness, those that are not saved cast into the lake of fire. There will be 7 new things, new heaven, new earth, Jerusalem, so forth and so on. And then eternity begins. It's all over with. But here we are in Revelation. 1's gone. We're in 2 and 3, and we're almost in 4. Because in 4 is where we go. All right? Right. Okay, we're going to quit there. And next week we're going to pick up with chapter 1, verse 1, and then we'll go through. Now you let what's said tonight, let it soak. I know that all of you know it, but I've gone at it a different way. You let it soak, and then when we come through this, it'll all unfold to you. That's a brief outline of where we're going. So it's no need of preaching and teaching Revelation. We got it all understood. Thank you so much for coming tonight. This makes up for last Sunday night. I preached myself to death last Sunday night. I'm not going to do that anymore. Let's stand together.